Good morning, Unity of Lexington, and anyone else that is checking in live at 8. No, this is 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Welcome. I am Reverend Meghan Smith Brooks, and I am filling in for Reverend Carol today. She's having a well deserved day off. Hi, Carol. I think that I know that you were checking in with us. So I'm really delighted to be here with you and to spend some quality time in a sacred space, sharing with you and connecting with you, and hoping that this is something that will inspire you and lift you up and give you some inspiration to move into your day and to the rest of your week. Just to let you know who I am, I'm the former co-minister at Unity New Thought Unity Center in Cincinnati, and that's where I'm coming to you from. So it's wonderful that we can do this virtual way of checking in with each other, so that wherever you are in the world, we can be one together. And so it's not necessarily a bad thing that we can't meet face to face, because we can connect with so many more people this way. So I welcome you for wherever you are on your spiritual path. You are welcome here every day, every week, and always. So there's a few announcements that Carol asked me to share with you. One is to thank all of you who are supporting this spiritual community, because you make a difference. And even though not able to meet face to face, there are still expenses that are necessary for a ministry to exist and to thrive, and your contributions continue to allow it to exist. And there's a great sense of gratitude when we can give into something that is also giving back to us. So if you wish to donate to Unity of Lexington, you can go to the link on the Facebook page, which has a button that's labeled Shop Now. And or you could go to the website unityoflexington.org and click the donate button there. And they are most grateful. Later this afternoon, the service will be available on YouTube, or I think it will be on Facebook as well. So you can watch it later or share with others. Lots of opportunities to check in on this fabulous technology that we can do virtually. If you're tuning in for the first time, you will find the online service a little different than the live one. It'll be a bit shorter, and a few of the elements aren't included. But my intention is to make this an enjoyable experience for you. So get your cup of coffee or tea, whatever beverage of choice. Relax. I know some of you are probably still in your jammies, so that's perfect. And let's just take a moment to check in. One of the things that Reverend Carol offers for Unity of Lexington is to support you with prayer intentions, and that she has a prayer list, and we want to just acknowledge those that have asked to be supported in that way. And one and first and foremost is for peace and harmony in our community, the nation, and the world. So we hold that intention for all of us, because we are globally going through this huge paradigm shift in life. And so we want to see that shift going smoothly and allowing the citizens of the world to be open and receptive to embracing the possibilities of something better. We also hold the intention for Nicole and Leslie and all those who are still putting their lives on the line every day as healthcare workers. You are essential to our lives, and we are grateful for your willingness to show up. We also hold the intention of vibrational healing for Diane and Ginger, for Fur Baby's Spirit and Bear, and for Carolyn Durham's brother for healing, and Peyton for divine protection during her pregnancy, and sending that vibrations of love and a welcoming to her little one that's going to be joining us soon. If you would like prayer support, please email Reverend Carol at revcarol, and that's Carol with an E, Unity, at gmail.com. Again, revcarolunity@gmail.com, or you can PM her on Messenger. Please note, Unity of Lexington follows the Silent Unity Prayer Ministry format, which mentions only first names in prayers to honor confidentiality, and we know in spirit they are known. Reverend Carol is honored to support you in prayer, and know it is a shared intention. When we join together, it is very powerful. So your presence today is enhancing the experience for everyone. So thank you for that. So let's just take a moment to open with prayer to set the foundation and intention for today's gathering. Closing your eye, we just take a deep, deep intentional breath and let it go. And we know that there is only one presence and one power active in our lives, in the universe, in Unity of Lexington and all its community. And that presence and that power is one with us. We feel like active in and through and as us, as it touches us with every breath that we take. And we allow it to come forth to express us through us in powerful ways. As we listen to the guidance from within and allow our heart to have the courage to step out of the boundaries of our fear and anxiety and uncertainty so that we might express something that is beautiful and profound and makes a difference in the world. And so we see that intention for everyone that's listened today and for everyone globally. We hold that intention. In the name and through the power of the living presence that's active in us, and in a sense of gratitude, we simply say, Amen. So again, welcome to Unity of Lexington virtually. Today I want to share a sacred reading and some moments of intention to set up for our time of meditation. I opened the daily word and was drawn to the word comfort. I think that as we're moving through a lot of uncertainty and change, that comfort is a powerful word. And the affirmation is, I am comforted by the eternal presence. Simple as that. I am comforted by the eternal presence. From Matthew 5:4, it says, Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that today in my talk. There's a reading I wanted to share you from an unknown source that I think supports the intention for our time this morning. A spiritual awakening is not usually pleasant. Keep note of that. Often it feels like confusion, frustration, anger, sadness, grief, or being out of place. A spiritual awakening can be uncomfortable and challenging because it's an intense time of personal growth. But despite how difficult it may feel, you're not going crazy. Let me repeat that. You're not going crazy. You're evolving. You're evolving. And so when we feel like we're going crazy, that we're uncomfortable in this place and need some comfort, remember, I am comforted by the eternal presence. Moving into a time of meditation, I'm going to do something a little bit different because I'm inspired to do so. I'm going to sing a chant into meditation. This is a chant called I Allow by my beloved friend Terry Wilder, who's a New Thought singer, songwriter, and also a certified sound healer. She and I have collaborated to do grief healing retreats for healing and transformation. And this is a really powerful song. I wanted you to listen to the words that if you feel motivated to sing, no, you can sing out, nobody hears you, so it's perfect in your own space. So let's just take a deep breath to allow ourselves to be ready to receive, which are the first words in the song. I allow, I receive, I accept, I believe that I have all I need. I allow, I receive, I accept, I believe that I am all I need. Now I allow, I receive, I accept, I believe that I have all I need. I allow, I receive, I accept, I believe that I am all I need now. So I'm going to turn on some music to support us. And again, close your eyes, the eyes to the outer world, that we might open our inner eyes to the vision and the guidance and the wisdom within. And taking in a deep breath, feel that breath moving in and through and as you, reminding you that you are divine by nature. Focusing on your breath, just feel the gentle flow, the rhythm of the universe that is supporting you as you breathe in and breathe out. Feeling that breath, allow yourself to affirm, I allow. I allow all the universe has to offer me to come into the vibration of life that is activating me, that is animating me, that is providing my cells to be ignited and vibrating with health and wholeness. All the resources of the universe, I allow it to come in through every breath I take. And as I exhale, I gently release anything and everything that no longer is supporting my health and wholeness. It's no longer needed within my body or my mind. I gently release it out so it can be recycled for greater good. With my next breath, I consciously receive. I allow myself to receive all the universe is offering me, the benevolence of the source of life, that ceaseless, restless, creative energy that we call God, the vibration of the universe. I gratefully receive it with an openness, an open mind, an open heart, an open body. I say yes to whatever it has to offer me. And again, I exhale and release what's been used up and no longer needed, grateful that it served me. And so with my next inhale, I accept all the universe offers me. I've allowed it, I've received it, and now I accept it. I feel it empowering me, strengthening me, comforting me, offering me the peace of mind so that I can listen deeply, be more receptive. Just surrender into that receptive place where we can hear our heart's voice. That voice that offers us guidance, wisdom of the universe, the wisdom of our awakening heart. So allow yourself to receive it. And as you do, know that you are establishing a belief that is, you are grounded in knowing that I have all that I need right now. I have all that I need. And I'm grateful. So taking a moment to be in the silence, I invite you to bring into this sacred safe space where you are protected and it's an opportunity for healing and transformation. Bring in any challenge you're facing, any pain or sadness or loss from something you're grieving, fear, concern, anxiety of what's happening in the world. Just bring it all into this space right now and listen to that voice from within, that eternal presence offering you comfort and love. And so we take another deep, deep breath, feeling all that there is that is moving in and through and activating you. As we come to that place of realization of the gift that was offered in this time in the silence, this time of sacred contemplation, and feeling a sense of gratitude for whatever was offered, for whatever you experienced, knowing you planted seeds that may continue to grow and blossom and support you to thrive. And so with that appreciation, we bring our attention back to the physical time and place, opening our eyes and simply saying, Amen. And so it is. Thank you for joining me in this time. So I want to ask you, each of you, to consider, and I'm not going to hear your answers. So is there anyone listening who has never experienced some form of sadness from grief? If you're human, if you're breathing, I'm pretty sure you have experienced something. Is there anyone who's feeling the impact of loss of something significant and meaningful to you, or most especially the death of a loved one? Yes, I'm with you. Many of us have had grief triggered within our hearts from so many things, even just experiencing what we realize in the world around us, because the world around us is changing in ways that we have never imagined. It is shifting into a reality we find unfamiliar. Grief has triggered within most of us and within most anyone and everyone on a global impact. And I don't know ever before in the world, because of the technology we have and how we're able to share what's happening, have the human race experienced this traumatic invitation for a paradigm shift all at the same time. This triggering whatever has been unresolved within us, or the fear and anxiety of change and the unexpected and the unknown. So today I invite you into the conversation of grief, to understand what it is, how it impacts us, why it's important to process it, some tools and practices that will support you to navigate grief by unraveling it to ultimately thrive. Because I believe that we are designed to thrive, we are designed to evolve and to grow and to push out against the boundaries that we have imposed upon ourselves to stay safe. Yes, there's times that we need to be comforted, but we're not meant to stay in that place. We're meant to go beyond it and to explore everything that life offers us and to consider what it may provide to enhance who we are. And I think that is the really amazing gift and opportunity that's being offered to us now. But we need to have the courage to have the conversation around grief, why it's important, why we should not ignore it, and how we can support each other through this uncertain time. There is a story about the Dalai Lama on sadness that I shared in my soon to be released book, Unraveling Grief, A Mother's Spiritual Journey of Healing and Discovery. And I'll talk more about that in a minute. But this story came from Pema Chodron, who is an American Zen monk, in her book called Getting Unstuck. And I love her writing, but she shared the story of the Dalai Lama when he was asked if there's anything in his life that he feels sad about. And he related a personal story to the co-author about how he was approached by an elderly monk who couldn't do certain yoga poses due to his deteriorated physical condition. I don't know about you, but sometimes, no matter what age, you can't do yoga poses. But anyway, the Dalai Lama suggested that he not do them, that he was just simply too old, so don't try to push yourself into something you can't do. He later found out that this monk had committed suicide, thinking that he would then be reincarnated into a younger body and thus be able to do the exercises. So the Dalai Lama was left with deep sadness and regret that he had somehow unintentionally been responsible for the man's death, this man's suicide. The interviewer was stopped in his tracks and he said, "Oh my goodness, what did you do to get rid of that feeling?" And the Dalai Lama paused for quite a while. And he thought about that. And then he said, "I didn't. It's still there. I just don't allow it to drag me down and pull me back. I realize that being dragged down or held back by it would be to no one's benefit, not mine or anyone else's. So I go forward and do the best that I can." We have this idea that we either have deep sadness and regret, or we have to get rid of it, that we can't live with it, or we have to get rid of it because it might diminish who we are. But there's an ability within us to be pierced to the heart. Let me say that again. There's an ability to be pierced to the heart by the sorrow of the world and your own sadness and regrets without dragging us down. So you may ask yourself, how do we do that? Because I think as human beings, we go about trying to avoid having our heart pierced by sadness and deep regret or pain or the emotional trauma of loss. That's our human nature. But our divine nature says, no, we need to embrace it because I will show you the way. It's our teacher. We can learn from it. And that's what my personal experience has been. The book that I'm about to publish, probably be released in about a month. I'm waiting for the foreword to be finished. I'm really humbled and blessed that Marianne Williamson has agreed to write that for me because she believes that the platform of grief is an important thing to bring out into the world. I had experienced loss of grandparents. My father passed in 2007. But what I experienced on May 30th, well, actually, I didn't know until June 7th, 2013, was perhaps a parent's worst nightmare when I received a phone call from my older son who said, "Mom, I don't know how to tell you this, but Justin, his younger brother, was found dead in the river by a fisherman. We don't know what happened to him, but Mom, he's gone." You know, and your mind goes, what? I didn't just hear that. How could that possibly be? And then he repeated, it's like, no, Mom, he's gone. He's not, they don't know what happened to him. They don't know if he drowned. There's no answers, but the fishermen found him. And I was like, but I just talked to him a few days ago. I've been trying to call him and let him know. I had just arrived at baggage claim in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, to join 500 other ministers and colleagues for Unity Conference that was going to be at sea on a cruise ship that year. And my beloved and some other ministers were with me, and I must have turned white. I remember hearing those words, and it's like my heart just stopped. It just stopped. I didn't know if I could breathe again. How could this possibly be? And it was the beginning of a long journey, probably the first couple of months where I was not literally in my body. I was in a numb state. I was just kind of walking through the motions of life and observing things. But after a couple of months, I started to come out of it, and that's when the tsunami of pain just hit me, and it just smacked me like the intensity I couldn't even imagine how painful that could be. I think that we are divinely designed to have the ability to absorb something that is unexpected, traumatic, and intense, to go into that numb state for a while as a protective life preserver, so to speak, to help us to prepare to accept the truth of what's happened before we can begin to deal with the intensity of the pain. And that's what I observed happened to me. That eventually I had to begin to feel it. I had to embrace it so that I could process it, move through it, and come back out on the other side, because we're meant to live. I might have felt in the moment that I didn't want to live anymore, that I wanted to just hide under the covers and never come out again. But that would not be serving my life, my son's life. I realized that in order to honor him, I needed to have the courage to come out and live again, to thrive, and to find a meaning in my life again. And so what I realized initially is to not be afraid of the emotional reaction or the pain that we feel from grief, especially the heart-wrenching, deep, intense grief of traumatic and unexpected death. Because I believe that as we come out of the numb state and we begin to feel the pain, that is a sign that the recovery process is taking place, that we are being led back into our wholeness if we're willing to embrace it, to unravel it, so that we can begin to see what it has to offer us, because I believe that grief is our teacher. So one of the things that I did was to look to a spiritual support and guidance. As a Unity minister who was leading a community at the time, I was grateful that I had the foundation of my spiritual teaching. I had for years counseled others when they were going through grief and offered them practices and tools. And I realized that now is my turn to really take them to heart and to work them. But I needed some spiritual substance to support me. And I found that Jesus shared a teaching in the second beatitude from the Sermon on the Mount, which I shared with you already this morning. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. It wasn't about being a martyr or being a victim, just like the Dalai Lama said that, I have to find a way to live with my sadness so that it won't tear me down, it won't drag me down. Jesus didn't want us to not feel the process of grieving. He wasn't suggesting that we inhibit it. For when he spoke, he was always talking about consciousness. So we have to look at what was he really talking about? What did he really mean when he was talking about that we are blessed to mourn? So if we're talking about consciousness, it's about how we can transform and lift ourselves up to the vibration of wholeness, which is what we do with a prayer intention. It's not to get rid of something, but to transform us, to change us. And so that if we lift ourselves up to a higher perspective, it gives us a place to observe something new that we hadn't perhaps noticed before. So when Jesus said, blessed are those that mourn, He is saying, blessed are those who have had terrible losses. And I think most of us can relate to that in some form. And those terrible losses are paradigm shifters. If we're willing to embrace them, to feel the pain so that we can begin to heal, we must feel it to heal it. These paradigm shifters are something that allows us to change our thinking, to open us up to new worlds, new possibilities, new ideas, something maybe we've been afraid to tip our toe into before. So when we're being invited into living in this new world based on this crisis, it's offering us something of value. So you have to go through the grieving process. It's not something we can avoid. If we go numb, which is what often some people might do with addiction, so that you don't have to feel, it will be waiting for you. It will always be there. It will blindside us if we don't have the courage to move through it. So you have to acknowledge what has been lost, no matter what it is. We have to acknowledge who we were in that situation, because what's happened in the moment of a significant loss is that we have changed. And the process of grieving is to catch up with and allow the integration of how we have changed to come out into the manifestation, to be revealed to the world. The decisions that you have made or did not make in that moment, and at the same time, the universe is inviting you to become way bigger than you ever thought you could possibly be. Through this mourning process, this longing process, it is where we learn. We are embracing grief as our teacher, offering us a gift that can enhance who we are if we're willing to receive it. And so we look at translating what Jesus might have said. We know the words in English, but Jesus didn't speak English. He spoke Aramaic, he spoke Greek, he spoke Hebrew. And so the writings of Jesus that were written 40 to 60 years after he died were not recorded in the moment. And so it's based on someone else's memory or story they were told and their interpretation of what they thought is relevant. And then the translators into other languages have to consider, what do they mean? What does this word mean? And it may not be exactly the original intention. I like to go to Rocco Errico. He's a wonderful scholar and minister of the Aramaic language. And what he suggests is that blessed means more like extreme happiness, ecstatic joy, this intensity of receiving something that we embrace, that's welcoming. So perhaps what Jesus is saying is more along the lines of, blessed or happy are those whose identity is so shaken, because our identity is shaken in the moments of loss, of emotional pain and grief, when something has died or been taken from us. So happy are those whose identity is shaken, so that they can begin to discover the part of them that can never be shaken. And grief can really shake us up, right? So we're willing to go deep enough to find that place within us, that comfort from the eternal presence that will not be shaken ever, that we can ground ourselves in, and that we can listen to it as our teacher to find our way back out into the world to thrive. Deep mourning leads us to finding God. That's really what it is that we're seeking, that connection of something that offers us a resource, a foundation, so that we won't crumble and fall. Mourning is the process of seeking that we call God, the connection of the divine. I love this quote from George Harrison and the Beatles when he said, "It is in human dissatisfaction with life that we seek happiness, and we only find it when we come to know God." Because we think that we're going to find happiness outside of us. Happiness is something we find within us, that is a sense of who we are, and that we can find no matter what life has presented us. And that might sound like a conflict, but we can still find happiness or a sense of gratitude in the experience of pain and grief and loss. When we've been so shaken to the core, we seek to know our relationship with our divine self that we might be comforted, guided, directed in a quantum leap of spiritual growth. Because that's what grief offers us. We say we want to be awakened. We say we want to evolve, to grow, to have this higher level of consciousness. Well, that's what grief is offering. You say, here you go. Here's this opportunity. Because deep mourning leads us to finding a new relationship, that which we call God. And I believe that that part of our deep process, for me, that deep process was in seeking a deeper relationship with God. My mourning for my son's presence became my longing for that which could comfort me. And it could only really come from within. In my grief journey, I began to understand what grief really is with our human experience. Because grief is a significant part of our human experience, and you cannot avoid it if you are living. It serves as our teacher. It is not something to get over, but to embrace and learn from. It is important to realize that grief is a multifaceted response to loss, particularly the loss of someone or something that we have a deep emotional bond or affection with. And that's why it impacts us so much. It will impact us in every level of our life experience, and maybe not all at once. It may come in different ways, so we don't even realize the levels of how it's impacted us. But it will find its way into every part of who we are and our connection with all of life. So if we do not acknowledge grief or learn from it, it can destroy us. And that's tragic on so many levels. I've seen that happen. I don't think that our loved one that we may be mourning would want that for us. And so in a very sad sense, we're not even honoring their life when we cease to stop living and just bury ourselves in that sadness. My revelation of grief's impact on our lives came upon waking one morning while I was writing my book. A realization of what grief is and how it impacts us on a physical, cognitive, behavioral, social, cultural, spiritual, and philosophical dimension. So I want to share this piece that I think brings to light what grief really is within us. From my personal experience, I have become aware of grief slowly creeping into every part of us. It infiltrates our thoughts and feelings. It seeps into our emotions. It crawls into our heart. It finds its way into the cells of our body, and it takes over how it functions. It finds its way into every aspect of our lives, our relationships, how we respond to the world around us, our behaviors, our perceptions. It crawls into our perception of life on every level. And we can't even recognize ourselves in time as it has taken up residence in who we are. So I have decided that my only option is to make friends with grief, since we will be hanging out so much together, like for the rest of my life. And I realize as a lifetime relationship, whether I like it or not, it's a good idea to take steps to get to know my new friend that seems to be influencing so much of who I am now. Maybe you can relate to that. Maybe you can realize that it's affected you, but didn't know that's what it was. I believe one step toward embracing what our friend grief offers us is through something Pema Chodron, who, as you may have noticed, is one of my favorite spiritual teachers, that she offers in her lessons from her book, When Things Fall Apart, which I recommend is a really powerful book when you're dealing with deep grief. She discusses the Buddhist term bodhicitta, which means the awakened heart, which I correlate with the idea of Jesus' beatitude to mourn, to really seek transformation and enlightenment on a very profound level. So we require this awakening, this bodhicitta, by not fearing the process of feeling deeply, to not be afraid of it. but through our longing for God, a connection with our divine nature, our divine source. For when we do, we find ourselves, our true self. And at the same time, what we experience as God is an experience of grace, true comfort, and knowing that we meet the energy of God in the experience of our hurting heart. And we always receive a gift that is hidden in the process. The gift that we will not receive if we don't go through the pain to process it, to heal. For grief is not something we get over. It is something we learn to live with as a new part of who we are. It has changed us at the core, and usually it enhances us for the better. I think that's what the Dalai Lama was suggesting when he said that he had not stopped feeling sadness, because he realized that it offered him a great perspective of life, a great opportunity to understand and to enhance the depth of who we are. So the measure of how we embrace the process of grieving is the measure of how we will begin to experience gratitude. The gift received when we seek deeply the experience of the divine to heal our hurting heart. So how do we embrace grief to experience the gift of the awakening heart, of realizing gratitude? You know, first and foremost, I always tell people to be gentle with yourselves. When you're in the raw emotion of new experience of grief and loss, it's taking time to love yourself enough to have the courage to acknowledge your feelings and what your body is telling you you need. You know, that comfort that is the eternal presence can come from listening to our heart. So as we do that, we allow ourselves the rest that we might need, because processing grief takes a lot of energy. And letting ourselves, you know, have that comfort. Is it calling a friend and asking them to be with you and saying you can just listen? Because I remember people coming to me and saying, I don't know what to say. And I said, I don't know what to say either. So that's okay. I just appreciate that you care. So having the courage to really share what's on your heart with someone and asking them if they'd be willing just to sit and listen, that you might have something that you need to just talk about, but they're not asking them to fix it. But as you're doing that, it's having the courage to feel deeply, as deep as you can, to allow all that pain to come out to the surface to be transformed. And I mean like going to the place where you just regurgitate it out. You scream it, you journal it, you do whatever you can to just go deep, deep into it. Because the deeper you can go, the deeper you're going to discover who you really are. And the intensity of the vibration of pain that is on the same spectrum as the intensity of bliss, of joy, of happiness. And we don't avoid that. We try to seek that. So we have to be comfortable with the full spectrum of emotion, of the vibration of life. And as we're doing that, to allow the tears to flow without resistance, without hesitation, to begin that healing process. I call them holy tears of energy release. I got to where, instead of trying to hold it back or being embarrassed or, you know, like bucket up, it's like, let it flow without resistance. Let it just run down your face, to be comfortable with that, just dripping on your clothes, not trying to sop it up. Can you do that? It is a most profound healing experience. Sitting in the silence with our heart and breathing. You know, I said that when I first heard the news, I think I need some coffee, that my son had been found dead, and my heart stopped. Part of my grieving for a process and making friends with it was learning to breathe again, to do some deep breathing, meditative processing, and to allow that deep breath to go into your heart, where it breaks up everything so that it can be released and you can listen to your heart as it awakening to something new within you. to find the presence of the divine for comfort, but also for guidance, and trust it. And if you're really struggling, don't be afraid to reach out and ask for professional support. A minister that offers spiritual counseling, a professional therapist that can offer you a way to move through it so that it it doesn't prevent you from living, from being out in the world and expressing, because we are creative by nature. We are meant to express things. I offer grief coaching, and so grief coaching is really when we're past that raw state, but we're ready to really have the courage to go deep and have somebody help us to be vulnerable enough and to find a way to heal it so that I can begin to consider what my lost love has offered me as a legacy of their life. And how do I integrate it into my existence to enhance who I am, so that as I refocus my life, I realize I am living a legacy too. That how I live my life will be the gift that I offer to those that I leave behind. What a beautiful thing that can come out of intense grief. And as we do that, we embrace the gratitude for everything, the simple things, even if it's just that I'm breathing now. So we learn to make friends with grief as a rich new texture of depth that we may not have expressed before. My experience of grief has become a process that has taken me deeper into discovering the meaning of life and realizing the gift in gratitude in a level that I had never experienced before. Even just in the fact that my son's body was found versus never knowing what would have happened to him if he hadn't been. In embracing grief, we discover the richer, more meaningful ways of living that creates a more mature and transformed being, enhancing the consciousness of this planet. Processing our grief makes a difference in the world. We make a difference by walking this path of courage that no one can walk for us. We must choose it. So will you do that for yourself? Will you embrace the pain of loss and grief in all its depth and sorrow and inner turmoil? To allow the possibility of being so shaken that you come to know the God of your being in a relationship much more profound than you ever thought possible. So I just want to let you know that if you are somebody that would like support for processing grief and you would like to connect with me, my website is www.unityawakeningways. It's an alternative unity ministry, and you can find my grief coaching, and also I do grief healing and transformational retreats with my partner Terry Wilder. We do them both virtually, 3.5 hours. Our next one is coming up August 22nd. So the retreat page gives you all that information. We're also doing a 4-day live retreat at Unity Village next March, so that'll be exciting. I do a Monday Musings with Meghan on Facebook Live at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, where I share anything that's coming up and keep you informed. If you would like to be on my pre-sale list for my book coming out, you can email me at unravelinggrief@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to let you know that. So just know that my personal mission is to support anyone in healing and transforming unresolved grief, and to bring a deeper understanding of the significance of grief into our human experience, into our conversation and awareness in our world. So join me in being a part of this global shift by embracing grief to thrive. In closing, I want to offer a quote that has served to awaken me from the depths of my sadness and onto the path of thriving, by Carl Jung. And he simply says, "Embrace your grief, for there your soul will grow." One deep breath at a time. We can breathe through it, and we can find, by accepting mourning, a rich part of living and thriving. And so it is. In closing today, I just want to invite you to join me in the prayer for protection, a powerful way to remember that we are one with that active living essence of vibrational energy that we call God. And I'm going to say it a little bit different, the way that we used to do it at my previous ministry, that is saying the first line of each line, but then intentionally claiming it as part of who I am. So together we say, the light of God surrounds us. I am the light of God. The love of God enfolds us. I am the love of God. The power of God protects us. I am the power of God. The presence of God watches over us. I am the presence of God. Wherever we are, God is, and I am, and we are one. And so it is. Amen. And we'll see you again next week when Reverend Carol comes back. Have a fabulous day.